Touchdown!
Hey guys, Ace here from Select Start, bringing you more fantasy football action and my top 3 sleeper must-starts for Week 2. Week 1 saw a ton of big-name guys go off, so I'm going to highlight 3 of the lesser-known players, factoring in their talent, matchup, and game flow. I'll also go over where I was right last week and also where I was dead wrong. Let's get into it. My number 3 sleeper must-start of Week 2 is Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. The prodigal son has returned, and he looks sensational. He threw a modest but efficient 20 for 27 for 261 yards, 2 touchdowns, and most importantly, no interceptions. With a healthy set of legs, a T. Higgins IV, and Jamar Chase actually catching the football, he set up for success in Week 2 against the Bears defense that just surrendered 329 yards and 3 touchdowns at home versus the Rams. Game flow sets up well too, as both teams appear to be very evenly matched. Guys, it looked bad for JB after the injury, but the comeback is greater than the setback for Joe Burrow. Currently, he is the QB 11, and will look forward to entering the top 10 next week against Chicago. My number 2 sleeper must-start of the week is Antonio Brown of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We all know AB is a big talent, but I think it's fair to say that after all the off-the-field incidents and the amount of skill position players competing for targets in Tampa, there were a lot of question marks about Antonio Brown that directly affected his fantasy value, and probably still does. With that being said, this will be the first and the last time AB winds up on this list, but he's definitely worth mentioning this week. AB got off to a sensational start, registering 121 yards off just 7 targets, registering 24 fantasy points. In Week 2, he's matched up against a horrid Atlanta Falcons defense, one that surrendered over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns to Eagles pass catchers in Week 1. The only factor I worry about is game flow. The Bucs are just too dominant on both sides of the ball. This one could be over by halftime. With that being said, there'll be plenty of Falcons to feast on come Sunday. This home matchup is right for all Bucs receivers, including AB, which begs the question, is it too early to consider AB the Bucs wide receiver 1? Let me know in the comments, guys. And my final sleeper must-start of the week is Christian Kirk of the Arizona Cardinals. He made the most of his 5 targets, with 2 of those being touchdowns. He finished the day with 70 yards, averaging a blistering 14 yards per catch. Next week, he's matched up against a Minnesota defense that gave up over 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to Bengals pass catchers. Game flow is also looking good too, with both teams competitive enough to keep the scores close. The Vikings will have their hands full again this week with D-Hop, AJ Green, and Christian Kirk. Now that the picks are in, let's recap where I went right in Week 1 and also where I went wrong. I'll start with Elijah Moore. The supremely talented receiver looked lost out there, and in hindsight, would have probably benefited from having a preseason. Not only did he drop 2 early wide open throws, one of which was about 6 yards down the field, and would have most surely changed the complexion of a very sloppy, low-scoring game. He finished the game not even scoring a single point, catching 1 of 4 targets. He'll look to get in rhythm this Sunday against a stout New England Patriots defense, and is probably not worth starting until about Week 5 against Atlanta. Next up on players I got wrong is Trevor Lawrence. While he did a great job distributing, completing passes to 8 different receivers, his game Sunday was that of a roller coaster, throwing 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, going 29 for 51 for 332 yards. Honestly, guys, I just didn't factor in how terrible their own defense was. Just pathetic. If you aren't targeting the Jacksonville Jaguars defense every week, then you ain't doing it right. Trevor Lawrence has 3 straight plus matchups coming up with Denver, Arizona, and Cincinnati. But I think I'm in wait-and-see mode right now with Trevor Lawrence, regardless of his arm talent. Lastly, what I got right was Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. He took advantage of his tasty matchup at Atlanta, catching 4 or 5 of his targets for 42 yards and 1 sensational TD. He's matched up against the 49ers defense this week, who on Sunday gave up 26 fantasy points to TJ Hawkinson. Let's just say he's a must-start again this week. For more fantasy football action, hit that notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, like and sub the channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys.